Albert Einstein once said, "If bees disappeared from the face of the earth, humanity would have no more than 4 years to live. No bees, no pollination. No pollination, no plants. No plants, no food. No food, no us." This quote is disputed. People say Einstein never said it. Maybe. But here is what is certain. Scientists are saying exactly this. Without bees, the food chain on the planet breaks down completely within just a few years. And at the same time, bees are disappearing right now all over the world. And most people do not even think about it. Today we are talking about a creature without which life on Earth, in the form we know it, would be impossible. About a creature that created a product that does not spoil for thousands of years. About a creature capable of making collective decisions smarter than many human organizations. About the bee. Block 1. What is a bee? Let us start with scale. There are about 20,000 species of bees on the planet. 20,000. Most people know one, the honeybee. The other 19,999 species live their own lives, alone or in small groups, pollinate plants, build nests in the ground, in stems, in cracks and rocks, and remain almost invisible to us. The honeybee, Apis mellifera, is the very one that humans keep. It originally comes from Africa and Eurasia, but over thousands of years of human activity, it spread all over the world. Most of this conversation will be about it. A bee is an insect, class Insecta, order Hymenoptera, family Apidae. Its closest relatives are wasps and ants. This is not a random neighborhood. All of them are social insects with highly organized colonies. The size of a honeybee worker is about 15 millimeters, and its weight is about 120 milligrams. This is a creature you can place on the nail of your thumb, and it will remain there, almost weightless. At the same time, it is part of one of the most complex biological systems ever to appear on Earth. A bee's body consists of 3 sections: head, thorax, abdomen. On the head are complex compound eyes that allow it to see in the ultraviolet spectrum. Flowers that look one-colored to us are colorful maps for a bee, with landing strips pointing directly to the nectar. Evolution made an agreement. The flower signals to the bee carries pollen. A bee's antennae are multifunctional sensors. They perceive smells, temperature, humidity, and air vibrations. A bee literally feels the world around it with its antennae continuously. On the hind legs are pollen baskets, special depressions with stiff hairs along the edges. The bee cleans pollen from its body, moistens it with nectar, and presses it into the basket. A loaded bee flies with bright yellow or orange balls on its hind legs. These are the pollen baskets, packed to the limit. Only females have stingers, worker bees and the queen. Drones, the males, have no stinger at all. The worker bee's stinger is barbed, like a fishing hook. When it stings, it gets stuck in the skin, and as the bee flies away, it tears out part of its abdomen together with the stinger. This kills it. A bee stings only when there is no other way out, and it pays for it with its life. The queen, the only one in the hive, has a smooth stinger without barbs. She can sting repeatedly without harming herself, but she does this extremely rarely, only in the case of a direct threat or in a fight with another queen. Block 2. The structure of the hive. One hive is not just a pile of bees. It is a single organism. Biologists even use the term superorganism because the hive functions as one living being, where every bee performs the function of a separate organ. A typical hive contains from 40 to 80,000 individuals. At the height of summer, it can reach 100,000. Of them, there is one queen. Her only function is reproduction. She lays up to 2,000 eggs per day. During the active season, almost without stopping. The queen lives up to 5 years. This is the longevity record for a bee family. Worker bees live about 6 weeks in summer. Several hundred drones are males. Their only task is to fertilize a young queen. They do not work, do not collect nectar, do not guard the hive. They only eat and wait. In autumn, when their role is fulfilled, the worker bees simply drive the drones out of the hive. Outside it is cold, and the drones die. This is not cruelty. This is precise calculation. There is no point in feeding extra mouths during winter. All the others are worker bees, females with underdeveloped ovaries. They do everything: build honeycombs, collect nectar and pollen, produce honey, feed larvae, maintain the temperature in the hive, guard the entrance, remove trash and dead bees, produce wax and propolis. The most amazing thing is that worker bees have a clear system of age-based professions. A young bee that has just emerged from a cell spends its first days cleaning the cells. Then it becomes a nurse bee and feeds the larva. Then a builder, secreting wax. Then a guard at the entrance to the hive. And only during the last 2 weeks of its life does it become a forager bee, flying out for nectar. Every bee knows what to do, without orders from above, without managers. The queen does not control the hive in the usual sense. She does not give commands. Control happens through chemical signals, pheromones, and through an amazing mechanism that deserves to be discussed separately, the dance language. In 1946, the Austrian biologist Karl von Frisch discovered something incredible. Bees communicate through dance. A bee that has found a source of nectar returns to the hive and performs a dance on the honeycomb. The shape of the dance, its duration, and the angle relative to vertical encode 3 parameters: the direction to the source relative to the sun, the distance to it, and the quality of the food. Other bees watch the dance and accurately find the indicated place. For this discovery, von Frisch received the Nobel Prize in 1973. Bees are among the few creatures on Earth that use symbolic language to transmit information about distant objects. This is an ability we are used to considering exclusively human. Block 3. How bees make honey. Honey is not just a sweet substance. It is the result of a complex biochemical process that takes several weeks and requires the efforts of thousands of individuals. Nectar is the raw material. A forager bee sucks it from a flower using its proboscis and places it into the honey stomach, a separate organ not connected to digestion. The honey stomach holds about 40 milligrams of liquid. To fill it, a bee visits from 100 to 1,500 flowers. The chemical transformation begins already inside the honey stomach. Special enzymes, primarily invertase, break down the sucrose of nectar into glucose and fructose. This process continues already in the hive. When it returns, the bee passes the nectar to a hive bee through a special exchange. That bee again places it into its own honey stomach, processes it with enzymes, and passes it to the next one. This chain may repeat several times. Gradually, the water content in the nectar drops from 80% to 20%. Then the bees place the partially processed nectar into a honeycomb cell and begin ventilation. They beat their wings, creating an air current. Evaporation continues. When the humidity drops to 18%, the honey is ready. The bees seal the cell with a wax cap. To produce 1 teaspoon of honey, bees must cover an area equal to 2 trips around the Earth along the equator. More precisely, about 120,000 kilometers of total flight path and about 2 million flowers visited. During its life, 6 weeks, one worker bee produces about 1/2 of a teaspoon of honey. 1/2. If you ate a spoonful of honey, you ate the result of 12 lives of work. Honey never spoils. Honey 3,000 years old has been found in the tombs of Egyptian pharaohs. It was still edible. The reason is several factors. Very low humidity does not allow bacteria and mold to multiply. An acidic environment, with a pH of about 3, is hostile to most microorganisms. Plus hydrogen peroxide, which is released by the enzyme glucose oxidase. Honey is a natural antiseptic with an unlimited shelf life. Honey has been used in medicine for thousands of years. The Egyptians used it to treat wounds. During the First World War, when there were not enough medicines, honey was used as an antiseptic for dressings. Modern research confirms honey, especially Manuka honey, is effective against a number of bacterial infections resistant to antibiotics. Block 4. What else do bees produce? Honey is only one of the things bees give the world, and possibly not the most important. Wax. Worker bees secrete it through special glands on the abdomen. To produce 1 kilogram of wax, bees must eat about 8 kilograms of honey. Wax is the building material of the hive, but humans have also used it for thousands of years. Candles, cosmetics, medicinal ointments, polishes, impregnation for fabric and leather, preservation of food. Propolis. A resinous substance that bees collect from bugs and tree bark and mix with enzymes. In the hive, it is used as an antiseptic and building material. Bees seal cracks with it, cover the walls, and neutralize foreign objects. If a mouse gets into the hive and the bees cannot drag it out, they cover the body with propolis, creating natural mummification. Without propolis, the decomposing mouse would infect the whole hive. Propolis contains more than 300 biologically active compounds. In medicine, antibacterial, antiviral, and antifungal properties. Studies show effectiveness against some types of cancer in laboratory conditions, although clinical trials are still ongoing. Royal jelly is a special substance produced by the glands of young worker bees. All larvae are fed with it during the first 3 days, but the larva that will be raised as a queen receives royal jelly throughout its entire development without restriction. And this is the only thing that distinguishes the queen from a worker bee. Genetically, they are identical. The difference is only in nutrition. The queen lives 5 years, the worker bee, 6 weeks. The queen is twice as large, and her ovaries are fully developed. All of this is the result of royal jelly, not genetics. Royal jelly contains a unique protein, royal actin, which triggers a hormonal cascade leading to the development of the queen. This is one of the most studied examples of epigenetics, when it is not the genes themselves, but their expression, that determines what an organism becomes. Bee venom, apoptoxin. With one sting, about 0.1 milligram of venom enters the blood. For most people, this is minor irritation, but for people with allergies, it is potentially deadly. Apoptoxin contains melatonin, the most studied component. Research shows that it has anti-inflammatory properties and is being studied as a potential agent against some viruses and tumors. Apitherapy, treatment with bee venom, has been practiced for thousands of years. Modern medicine treats it with caution, but research continues. Here is the first question for you. Have you ever used beekeeping products for medicinal purposes? Honey, propolis, royal jelly? Write in the comments. Block 5. Pollination. Why is there no food without bees? This is the most important thing bees do. Not honey, but pollination. About 80% of all flowering plants on Earth depend on insect pollination. Of those, most depend on bees. About 1/3 of all the food humanity consumes exists thanks to bee pollination. Let us be more specific. Apples, pears, sour cherries, sweet cherries, apricots, peaches, plums. All of them require bee pollination. Cucumbers, zucchini, pumpkins, bees. Almonds depend on bees by 90%. Strawberries, raspberries, blueberries, blackberries, bees. Coffee, bees. Cocoa, bees. Sunflower, bees. Grain crops, wheat, rice, corn, are pollinated by wind and do not depend on bees. These are the several years humanity theoretically could live on bread and rice, without fruits, vegetables, nuts, chocolate, and coffee. But that is not all. Without bees, not only cultivated plants will disappear, wild flowering plants will disappear, the ones that form the foundation of ecosystems. After them, the insects and birds that feed on these plants will disappear. Then the predators that feed on those birds and insects. The chain collapses from the bottom upward. One honeybee hive pollinates an area of 5 to 10 square kilometers in one season. The economic value of pollination that bees provide for global agriculture is estimated at about $250 billion annually. This is a service that nature provides for free while bees are alive. In the United States, bee pollination is valued at $15 to $20 billion per year. Every almond orchard in California, the largest almond producer in the world, completely depends on rented hives. Farmers pay beekeepers to bring hives during the flowering season. Without this, there will be no harvest. When bees disappear in an area, people sometimes take up hand pollination. In Sichuan province in China, where bees disappeared because of uncontrolled pesticide use, peasants pollinated apple orchards by hand with brushes, flower by flower. This is not a hypothetical scenario. It happened. It is happening right now. Block 6. Why are bees disappearing? Since the early 2000s, a sharp decline in bee populations has been recorded around the world. The phenomenon received the name colony collapse disorder, CCD. Bees simply leave the hive and do not return. No dead bodies are found, the hive becomes empty. In the United States alone, from 2006 to 2008, about 30% of all bee colonies died. In some states, more than half. In Europe, a similar picture. In Asia, too. There are several reasons, and they act simultaneously, strengthening one another. Pesticides, primarily neonicotinoids, a class of insecticides widely used in agriculture. They do not kill a bee immediately. They act chronically on the nervous system, disrupting navigation, memory, and the ability to learn. A bee exposed to small doses of neonicotinoids loses the ability to find its way back to the hive. It simply does not return because it cannot find the way home. This is colony collapse disorder. The European Union banned the outdoor use of the three most dangerous neonicotinoids in 2018. This is an important step. But in most countries of the world, these substances are still used. The varroa mite is a parasite that came from Asia. It feeds on the fat body of bees and their larvae, weakens the immune system, and carries viruses. Today, varroa is present in practically every hive on the planet, except Australia and several isolated territories. Without regular treatment, the mite destroys a colony in 2 or 3 years. Loss of habitat. Monoculture agriculture, endless fields of wheat or corn. This is a desert for bees. There is no diversity of flowering plants, no food. Urbanization destroys meadows and flowering roadsides. Wild bees, which do not have hives, lose nesting places. Climate change. The flowering times of plants are changing. Bees, tied to a specific seasonal cycle, become out of sync with flowers. They arrive earlier or later, when nectar is already gone or not yet available. Pathogens. Fungal infections, viruses, bacteria. Bees weakened by pesticides and varroa resist diseases worse. Infections spread faster. Here's the second question for you. Have you noticed in recent years that there are fewer bees than in your childhood? Not only honeybees, but any insects outside. Write about it. Block 7. What will happen if bees disappear? Year 1. Flowering agricultural crops give a sharply reduced harvest. Fruits, berries, nuts. In shortage. Prices rise. Farmers try to switch to hand pollination or pollination with drones, but it is incomparably more expensive and slower. Year 2. Year 3. The food shortage grows. Many species of wild flowering plants disappear. After them, insects and birds dependent on them. A cascading collapse of ecosystems begins. Year 4. Year 5. The global food production system is under threat of collapse. 1/3 of humanity's diet has disappeared or become inaccessible to the majority. This is not science fiction. These are assessments by serious scientific organizations. The UNFAO, the Intergovernmental Platform on Biodiversity. But there is another side to this scenario. Humanity adapts. Pollinator robots are already being developed. Tiny drones with sticky fibers imitating the work of a bee. Work is already being done on artificial pollination using pollen spraying. Plant varieties capable of self-pollination are already being bred. But all of this is expensive, slow, and partial. It is impossible to replace in a few years 2 billion years of evolution that created the perfect pollination system. Block 8. Amazing facts about bees. Bees have existed for about 100 million years. The oldest fossilized bee was found in a piece of amber 100 million years old. Dinosaurs were still walking the earth, and bees were already pollinating flowers. A bee flies at a speed of about 24 kilometers per hour. In one flight, it travels up to 3 kilometers from the hive. In a day, several flights. The total flight path of one bee during its life is about 800 kilometers. A bee's wings make about 230 beats per second. This is what creates the characteristic buzzing, a sound with a frequency of about 230 hertz. The queen produces a different sound, lower, about 208 hertz. Bees distinguish these sounds and react to them differently. Bees can count up to 4. Experiments have shown that they are capable of associating the number of objects with a symbol and choosing the correct answer. This places them alongside birds and some primates in terms of numerical abilities. Bees are capable of recognizing human faces. This was discovered accidentally in experiments studying memory. Bees were trained to associate a specific face in a photograph with a reward. They remembered and distinguished one face from another with an accuracy of about 80%. A bee's brain weighs about 1 milligram. That is less than the comma at the end of a sentence. At the same time, it contains about 1 million neurons. For comparison, a human has about 86 billion. But the density of information processed by this 1 milligram is astonishing. Bees make collective decisions using a method scientists call swarm democracy. When a colony decides to move, several hundred scout bees fly out to search for a new place. Each one, returning, performs a dance in support of its option. The better the place, the more energetic the dance. Other scouts fly to check it and join the dance if they agree. Gradually, the majority supports one option. The swarm flies to the place that the majority of scouts voted for. No one makes the decision alone. No one has the right of veto. Pure horizontal democracy in a creature without a brain and without language. In winter, bees do not hibernate. They form a cluster. In the center is the queen. Around her are thousands of bees that vibrate their muscles without moving from their spot, producing heat. The temperature in the center of the cluster is maintained at about 35 degrees, even during the strongest frosts. Bees at the edge of the cluster gradually make their way to the center to warm up, while the warmed bees move out to the edge. They warm one another. One hive produces from 20 to 50 kilograms of honey during the summer. The family itself consumes about 20 kilograms during winter, and the rest is taken by the beekeeper. This is exactly why beekeeping is possible without harming the colony. Bees produce more than they need. Here is the third question for you. Are there any beekeepers among you, or people whose family kept bees? Tell us what it is like from the inside. Closing. We are used to not noticing the bee, to waving it away, to fearing its sting, to thinking about honey at breakfast and not thinking about where it came from. But every fruit you eat passed through a bee. Every flower you see exists thanks to a bee. Every tree in a garden, every berry in a forest, is the result of this work. 100 million years. While dinosaurs were born, lived, and died out, bees flew from flower to flower. While civilizations rose and fell, bees built their own. While we argued about politics and technology, bees did what without which life on Earth in its current form would be impossible. One creature weighing 120 milligrams, with a brain weighing 1 milligram, without which 1/3 of the world's food supply collapses. If you want to do something after this video, plant flowers. Any flowers. Do not cut dandelions too early. They are the first spring food for bees. Give up pesticides at your summer house. If you find a swarm in your home, do not kill it. Call a beekeeper. He will take them alive. This is not sentimentality. This is pragmatism. We literally need them. Subscribe to the Wild World channel. Leave a like if this video was useful for you, and write in the comments when you last saw a bee. Addition to Block 2. The birth of a queen and the swarm. One of the most fascinating processes in nature is the replacement of a queen and swarming. When the old queen begins to age, or the colony becomes too large, worker bees lay several queen cells, special large cells hanging vertically on the edges of the honeycombs. New queens grow in them. The first one to emerge immediately goes around all the other queen cells and stings her rivals right through the wall while they have not yet come out. If two queens emerge at the same time, a fight to the death takes place between them. The victorious young queen makes a mating flight. She rises high into the air, up to a height of 30 meters, and their mates with 10 to 20 drones from different colonies. Every drone dies immediately after mating. His reproductive organs remain inside the queen. But the queen receives a supply of seminal fluid for her whole life, up to 5 years, and never mates again. Meanwhile, the old queen flies out of the hive together with half of the family. This is the swarm. A huge, dense cloud of 10 to 20,000 bees that temporarily settles on a branch or a fence in the form of clusters. This is not aggression. This is relocation. At this moment, the swarm is almost safe. The bees do not have a hive that needs to be protected, and they are fully occupied with finding a new home. This is exactly when the scouts work, and the same swarm democracy we talked about takes place. Addition to Block 3. The anatomy of the honeycomb. The honeycomb is one of the most perfect architectural objects in nature. The hexagonal cell is not a random shape. Mathematically, it is the optimal geometry. Maximum volume with minimum use of building material. Scientists proved this in 1999 when the so-called honeycomb conjecture was solved. a mathematical problem that had remained open for almost 100 years. Bees came to this solution long before mathematicians. The walls of the cells are about 7 millimeters thick. At the same time, 1 square meter of honeycomb can withstand a load of 25 kilograms. The ratio of the structure's weight to the load it can withstand is one of the best in nature. The cells are not positioned horizontally, but at a slight upward angle, about 13 degrees. This is not accidental. This tilt prevents honey from flowing out before it is sealed. Addition to Block 5. Bees and Human History. Bees have accompanied humans from the very beginning of human history. Cave paintings in Spain, made 8,000 years ago, show a person collecting honey from a wild hive. This is one of the oldest documented pieces of evidence of human interaction with bees. In ancient Egypt, the bee was a symbol of royal power and appeared in the hieroglyphic writing of the pharaoh's title. Egyptians kept hives in ceramic tubes, knew how to transport them up and down the Nile, following the flowering seasons. This was the first industrial beekeeping in history. In ancient Greece, honey was the food of the gods. Ambrosia, the food that granted immortality, was described as a supernaturally sweet substance. Hippocrates used honey in treating wounds and intestinal diseases. In medieval Europe, honey was the main sweetener before the appearance of sugar and sugarcane. Beekeeping was an important part of monastery economy. Wax was used for church candles. This made bees literally part of religious life. Mead is one of humanity's oldest alcoholic drinks. Traces of mead have been found in vessels 9,000 years old in China. In Scandinavian mythology, honey is the drink of warriors in Valhalla. During the First World War, when sugar supplies decreased, Great Britain mobilized beekeepers to increase honey production. In besieged cities during the Second World War, hives were kept right on the roofs of buildings. Napoleon Bonaparte chose the bee as his personal symbol. It meant industriousness, organization, and collective strength. Bees were embroidered on his coronation mantle. Addition to Block 8. More facts. Bees do not sleep in the usual sense. They have periods of rest. They freeze for several hours and lower brain activity. But they do not have full sleep like mammals. Young bees rest chaotically. Older forager bees rest more regularly at night. Bees sense the electric field of a flower. Every flower carries a weak, negative electric charge. During flight, a bee accumulates a positive charge. When it approaches a flower, attraction arises. Pollen literally jumps onto the bee. After a bee visits, the electric charge of the flower changes for about 20 minutes. This is a signal for other bees. Someone has just been here. There is little nectar. Fly farther. Bees can solve the traveling salesman problem. This is a mathematical problem about the optimal route through many points. One of the classic computationally difficult problems. Bees, flying around several sources of nectar, intuitively choose a route close to optimal. Computers solve this problem by brute force. Bees do it on the first try. A bee's alarm pheromone smells like bananas. If you are stung by a bee, the smell of banana near a hive will attract others. Not the best time to eat bananas next to an apiary. 1 teaspoon of honey contains the labor of about 12 bees over their entire lives. A 1-liter jar of honey is about 80,000 kilometers of total flight path. Roughly 2 flights around the Earth. Addition: bees and modern technologies. Scientists study bees not only for the sake of protecting them, but also for inspiration. Swarm intelligence algorithms, mathematical models based on the behavior of scout bees, are used in route optimization for logistics, load distribution in computer networks, and control of drone swarms. Bee democracy turned out to be so effective that it became a computer algorithm. Pollinator robots already exist. Tiny drones with artificial hairs, capable of transferring pollen from flower to flower. The Japanese company Neo developed such a drone back in 2017. For now, this is still far from the scale of living bees, but the work continues. Researchers at Harvard are creating a swarm of microdrones called robo-bees. Each is the size of a coin. They are learning to fly in groups, coordinate movements, and perform joint tasks. The inspiration is the bee swarm. Wax moths, caterpillars, parasites of beehives, accidentally turned out to be capable of breaking down polyethylene. Scientists assume that the enzyme that allows them to digest wax also works with plastic. This discovery was made thanks to studying the enemies of the bee. A bee the size of a fingernail, weighing as much as a paperclip, turns out to be at the center of several scientific revolutions at once. Ecology, mathematics, robotics, medicine. All of this is the bee. For 100 million years, it has been doing its work. Quietly, without noise, without demanding attention. It is probably time finally to pay attention to it.